Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, where we have a highly unusual battle for you today. It's a weird name, this is Weedman of HMS Daring. Congratulations. And he is in the European Tier 9 destroyer, the Jaeger. If you're looking at this thing and thinking, that looks a bit World War One-ish, what's it doing at Tier 9? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've always thought this thing was weird. This is in the European tech tree, but it's an Austro-Hungarian destroyer, technically destroyer leader. And if you're thinking, well, hang on, didn't the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapse shortly after or around about the end of World War One? Yep, you're right. This thing was actually designed in 1917, but they were never built because the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed. It's a World War One design sitting here at Tier 9, at exactly the same tier and in exactly the same tech tree as the Friesland, the Dutch destroyer. That was built in the 1950s. Two ships, same tier, same tech tree, 40 years apart. Hey, nobody said it had to make any sense. I mean, technically every ship in World of Warships is just a collection of stats with a warship skin, so, I mean, you could have anything at any tier. But, well, yeah, still, a bit weird. Anyway, doesn't mean it's bad, though. Jaeger is a very, very good ship, but it is highly specialised. This thing is a destroyer, although this isn't particularly unique, armed with 6-inch guns. A lot of the German destroyers have 6-inch guns. But unlike those 6-inch gun-armed German destroyers, the Jaeger's guns are terrible. I mean, it only has 3 of them. They're 150mm, but it only has 3, with a 4.5 second reload. And I know what you're thinking. Stop it. Take your hands away from the keyboard. I know you're going to say, well, what about the Forrest Sherman? That only has 3 guns, but everybody says the Forrest Sherman has great firepower. That's because the Forrest Sherman does have great firepower. It may only have 3 guns. They may only be 5-inch guns, but it's got like a 1-second reload with those guns. It's got 4 times the gun firepower of the Jaeger. The Jaeger's guns are terrible, and if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're forced to use them, then all kinds of things have gone horribly, horribly wrong. So what is good about the Jaeger? Well, you've had a few clues, you've probably guessed. But I'm going to string you along for a little bit more by taking this opportunity to have a quick word about today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Opera GX, the browser for gamers, or people who are just sick and tired of putting up with Google, or people who would just like to take a bit more control over their browser, or all 3 at the same time. You can get a copy of Opera GX 100% free by heading over to operagx.gg/jingles9 or just clicking the link in the video description. Now, this is not my first Opera GX rodeo, so you're probably aware that my favourite feature of the browser is, of course, the ability to mod the way that it looks, sounds, feels, and performs. And bearing that in mind, I'd like to show you something new. Available for free at the GX mod store, like all of the other Opera GX mods, the new Deadly Host mod for Opera GX, in collaboration between Opera and the upcoming Venom: The Last Dance movie. It comes with new background music, browser sounds, keyboard sounds, wallpaper, desktop theme, and desktop shaders, everything that you'd expect from an Opera GX browser mod. And of course, like any other mod, you're 100% free to chop and change between the various different components and various different mods and mix and match them to your heart's content. Of course, underneath it all, it's the same Opera GX browser that allows you to take unprecedented levels of control over exactly how much of your system resources your browser is allowed to consume, so that whatever you're playing doesn't turn into a slideshow just because you happen to be running a browser window in the background. So, break up with your boring old browser and completely change the way you surf the web. Download and test the Deadly Host mod for free today by going to operagx.gg/jingles9 or click the link in the description box below. And don't forget to watch Venom: The Last Dance, exclusively in movie theatres. And we're back. So, what is good about the Jaeger? Well, it's the torpedoes, isn't it? The torpedoes are amazing. It gets 3 quad launchers, so you can put 12 of them in the water at once. They only have a 75-second reload. They are fast, with the speed of 86 knots. Decent range, 12 kilometers. Low chance of causing flooding, and not a huge amount of alpha damage, although, you know, that's kind of on par with the other pan-European destroyers that do tend to have very fast reloading and fast torpedoes, but with low individual damage per torpedo hit. But I mean, it can put 12 of them in the water at once with a 75-second reload. What's not to like? So what else is good about the Jaeger? Well, it's reasonably quick with a base speed of 37 knots. I mean, it's not, it's no speed demon, but it's not slow. And while it doesn't quite have best-in-slot stealth, I mean, 5.4 kilometers surface detection range is pretty damn good. But it kind of needs to have good stealth because it's really squishy. I mean, there are bad things about the ship other than the guns. The guns are really, really bad. It also has absolutely, and I don't have a problem with this, by the way, absolutely terrible anti-aircraft defenses. I'm actually even amazed that it has. I mean, it's a 1917 design, so I'm amazed it has any anti-aircraft defenses at all. It has a pair of 7.92mm machine guns with an average damage per second of 3.8. Not 38, no, 3. I mean, wow. And this is really weird. 4 66mm guns. What a bizarre caliber. I don't even know where that came from. It doesn't even get to use in the secondaries, although 66mm as secondaries would have been beyond useless. But these 66mm anti-aircraft guns, bless them for trying. 8.8 damage per second with a 3-kilometer range. I mean, just do what Weidman's done and turn the AA guns off at the beginning of the game, because the only thing they're going to do is get you spotted. Oh, he's got he hasn't actually hit anything with the torpedoes yet. And guess what? That's not going to change here either. That looked pretty good. I thought he might get one of those 2 battleships, but nope. So, yeah, we are 5 minutes in. He has unleashed a couple of dozen torpedoes. I mean, he's taken a cap circle, but he hasn't actually scored a single point of damage, a single torpedo hit on anything. Now, you could quite justifiably at this point be sitting there thinking, what are we watching exactly here? Because, I mean, the title of the video was Damn the Torpedoes. I was expecting to see torpedo hits. And, I mean, is it called Damn the Torpedoes because he hasn't hit a damn thing with the torpedoes? Patience, Padawan. Patience. Would your Uncle Jingles lead you astray? Well, I totally would if I thought it was funny enough. But I haven't. Not today. You're just going to have to trust me. So Weidman's unleashed yet another salvo of a dozen torpedoes. He's hoping to catch the Richelieu there, but that is only going to happen if the Richelieu does not take cover behind the island. And that is, in fact, exactly what he was doing. Weidman was kind of hoping he would continue to sail out. But, well, the Richelieu doesn't need to, does he? Because all of his guns are in the front. So all he needs to do is poke his nose out and he can shoot at everybody. And that is, in fact, exactly what he's done. So we are now 6 minutes in, and he still hasn't scored a torpedo hit. So while you're all having trust issues with me and getting increasingly suspicious, let's have a chat about the origin of the actual expression upon which the title of today's video was based, Full Speed Ahead and Damn the Torpedoes. This comes from the American Civil War, Battle of Mobile Bay in particular, in 1864, where Rear Admiral David Glasgow Farragut, yep, that Farragut, same guy after whom the US Navy Tier 6 destroyer is named, was leading an attack on the city of Mobile in Alabama. The Battle of Mobile Bay. Mobile was the last port that the Confederacy had in the Gulf of Mexico, so it was a fairly important target. But the port had been heavily mined, and one of Farragut's ships, I believe it was a Monitor, struck a mine and sank, causing the rest of his ships to hesitate. What do you mean mines, Jingles? I thought we were talking about torpedoes. Oh, and it looks like, we might actually get some torpedo hits. Don't know if it's going to be a kill, though. Oh, and yes, the team have no cap circles, and they're behind. 2 kills. And a couple of 100 points. And any torpedo hits? Come on. Nope, they've all missed. Jingles, yeah, but be patience, honestly, seriously. Would I lie to you? The thing is, back then in the 1860s, mines were called torpedoes. This is where the expression, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead comes from. Although that's not actually what Farragut said. What he said was "Damn the Torpedoes, 4 bells, Captain Drayton, go ahead, Jowett, full speed," which has been shortened over the years to "Damn the Torpedoes, full speed ahead." Which you have to admit, sounds better, and it's a lot easier to fit in a video thumbnail. Torpedoes away, again. We're 8 minutes in, he still hasn't hit a thing. Here's another little fact about David Farragut. The US Navy didn't have any admirals until they created the rank of Rear Admiral for him in 1862. And there it is. Okay, there's our first 4 torpedo hits. It is at this point where the Doom music starts playing. Yeah, the US Navy had flag officers, equivalent to the rank of Commodore, but they didn't have any admirals. The rank of Rear Admiral was created specifically for him by an act of Congress. He wasn't the only officer promoted to the rank, but it was done basically to recognize his service. A couple of months after the Battle of Mobile Bay, President Lincoln promoted him to the rank of Vice Admiral, which also didn't exist until that point, which made Farragut the senior ranking officer in the US Navy. There's a funny old thing about the rank of Vice Admiral in the US Navy, which, I mean, kind of makes sense, but it's also kind of a little bit weird. The US Navy can have no more than 162 active duty flag officers, so the rank of Rear Admiral or higher, and no more than 20% of those can be 3-star, i.e. Vice Admiral or higher. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, this is looking good. Oh, here we go, boys. 12 torpedoes launched, which is the maximum. 11 hits. I told you. But anyway, yeah, Vice Admirals. The funny thing about Vice Admirals in particular is that a Rear Admiral is only eligible for promotion at the rank of Vice Admiral if they're appointed to a position that requires the rank of Vice Admiral. After they've finished their term of office in that position, if there is no other position available to appoint them to that requires the rank of Vice Admiral, then they revert back to the rank of Rear Admiral and serve elsewhere. Getting appointed to the rank of Vice Admiral in the US Navy can actually be kind of hazardous to your career because, well, you know what also can be hazardous to your career? Yes, Weedman, getting spotted. Well, I mean, 5.4 kilometre stealth, he doesn't have to go very far to get unspotted, as long as he doesn't fire his guns, and let's face it, he's not going to do that, because they wouldn't do anything, and he has, in fact, gone unspotted. I don't think much for the Amagi's chances, though. He's not going to have to hit him with many of those. I think 2, maybe, should do the trick. Yep. 2 it was. But yes, getting promoted to the rank of Vice Admiral in the US Navy can be hazardous to your career, because here's the thing, if there is no suitable position, once you finish your term of office in the Vice Admiral position, and there is no suitable equivalent grade or higher position for you to be appointed to, you have to retire. They used to allow Vice Admirals who couldn't be appointed to an equivalent or higher grade position to just revert to the rank of Rear Admiral and then mark time until statutory retirement age in a lesser position, but, well, it had a bunch of negative consequences for other officers junior to you, like captains who were looking for promotion further up the ladder, because you're occupying those positions effectively cock-blocked them from getting promotion. So nowadays it's, get promoted or be forced to retire. Of course, this is a modern problem. They certainly didn't have any issues with too many Vice Admirals when Farragut was promoted to the rank, because he was the first one. And then 2 years later, Lincoln promoted him to Admiral, and he was the first one of those as well. Farragut died of a heart attack at the age of 69 while on vacation at his home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He'd served 60 years. He was still on active duty at the time. He'd served 60 years in the US Navy. He joined as a midshipman at the age of 9. My 22 years in the Royal Navy was nothing compared to that. Oh, there goes the Azima. That's another 5 torpedoes. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Admiral David Glasgow Farragut lived and breathed the US Navy. And the US Navy certainly owed a debt to him, because he was one hell of an officer. I suppose in many ways he's the US Navy's Admiral Nelson. He's probably held in the same regard in the US Navy that Nelson is held over here. that Nelson is held, in which Nelson is, oh, you know what, English is hard. I mean, you all know what I mean. Right, anyway, that's 22 torpedo hits. It took him a while to get warmed up, but, well, it's on. Trust me, he is only getting started. Next victim, please. Hello, Montana. Those torpedoes ahead, they're from the team's other Jaeger, who hasn't been having nearly as successful a run in the last few minutes. Oh, you've gotten spotted again. Oh, and he's gotten unspotted. But the Montana was very quick on the trigger, and oof, yeah, that hurt. Not as much as these are going to hurt the Montana, though. I mean, he is obviously taking steps to maneuver, and is only going to get hit by 4 of them. So we're now up to 26 torpedo hits, and we are still just getting started. I thought for a second the torpedoes that missed the Montana might have struck the target beyond him, but, well, no such luck. The team's asking for help spotting the Venezia over there, who's about to sail out of line of sight. Meanwhile, I'm not quite sure what's going on in chat. The enemy Wisconsin player is complaining about overpens. And, well, yeah, he's got a point. US Navy's 16-inch super heavy armor piercing shells, they do like to overpenetrate. But that's not the weird thing. Weidman's dead division mate is complaining that the Wisconsin is an overpowered piece of trash. I mean, okay, it gets a funny button that you charge up by hitting targets with the main battery guns, and when it's active for 20 seconds, you've got an 80% reload reduction on your consumables and a 50% reload reduction on your guns. I mean, it's pretty spicy, but overpowered? Do people really think that Wisconsin's overpowered? Well, clearly somebody does, but it's not a complaint I hear very often. Oh, lordy, that Montana's about... This might actually sink him. I mean, he's seen the torpedoes, he's turning away, but way too little. Most of those are going to hit. Is it? It is? Yep, there's the Kraken Unleashed. That was another 9 torpedo hits. So what's the running total now? Oh, that's a lot. 35 torpedo hits. Plenty more where they came from. There's still targets that need sinking. So we know there's a Venezia over there. Oh, that could be bad. You don't want to get spotted and shot at by the Elbing. I mean, it wouldn't be a disastrous situation because the Elbing, like the Jaeger, is armed with 6-inch or 150mm guns. The difference is the Elbings are actually good, and yeah. That's the issue, as the friendly Jaeger found out the hard way. The Elbing is spotting you, and there's a Venezia over there. Now, fortunately, the Venezia does have a very, 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 very long reload. So Weidman probably only has to worry about getting shot at by the Elbing for long enough to get out of... Ooh, oh, there was the Venezia. Yeah, I think Weidman saw his life flashing before his eyes there. He's just got to get unspotted. And of course, he was, counter-spotting the Elbing, which isn't fun for the Elbing either. Are those torpedoes? Oh, he's getting a couple of hits. 2? No, 3. Yep, 3. And a flood. Yeah, worth it. While Weidman was focusing on the Venezia over there, whose damage control is clearly on cooldown because the flood is continuing to tick, and, yeah, he's on fire as well. I don't think he's realised that the Elbing has died, because he keeps casting a wary eye in the direction of the smoke screen. And, well, I mean, it looks like the radio location skill was pointing in that direction. It's actually pointing, or it was pointing at the Venezia before the Venezia opened the distance and it flipped to point the other way. So he's still looking at that smoke screen and getting very, very confused because why is radio location pointing away from the smoke screen? He doesn't realise the Elbing's died. The Henri IV took him out. He still thinks he needs to torpedo the smoke screen, but I think the penny has just dropped and he's realised that he's safe. And with the death of Venezia, that just leaves the enemy Wisconsin, who cannot run away. There he is. I mean, he can't run away. You've got a destroyer with radio location skill. He's always going to know which way to go to find you. And the flip side of having the radio location skill is it points the direction towards the closest enemy ship, but that enemy ship will always know that somebody has them located. So the Wisconsin knows he can't run. And with the team having a nearly 300-point lead with a 2-cap advantage, with 2 minutes of the battle to go, Weidman doesn't need to go chasing after the Wisconsin. He's going to win anyway, and he certainly doesn't want to blunder around a corner in front of the Wisconsin's guns, because that would probably end badly for the Wisconsin, but there's an extremely good chance it would end badly for Weidman too, so he's not trying to win any harder here. He's keeping a safe distance so that he doesn't get spotted. In fact, he's even slowing down here to make absolutely sure he doesn't get spotted, because you can see the Wisconsin's spotter plane there. So he's got that and the radiolocation skill giving him an excellent idea of where the Wisconsin is, and he's just sending his torpedoes out on a little fishing expedition. And yep, there he is. and there he goes. And that's the high caliber to go with the devastating strike and the Kraken Unleashed. How many torpedo hits was that? 43 torpedo hits. Remember, for the first, arguably third of the battle, of the something like 40 torpedoes that he launched, none of them hit. And he ended that battle with 43 torpedo hits and nearly 200,000 damage done. Never fired the guns once, because you're in a Jaeger, why would you? They're terrible. The only thing firing the guns in this thing will do is get you spotted and killed. The torpedoes are where it's at. How much flooding damage do you think he did from his 43 torpedo hits? Because I did say that one of the downsides of these torpedoes is a kind of low chance of causing a flood. Yeah, there it is, 8,000. That's terrible. Well, to be fair, he did cause 10 floods from 43 torpedo hits, so not great. But, you know, you'd expect more than 8,000 from 10 floods. The thing is, pretty much everything that he hit with his torpedoes died instantly as a result of the hits. I think aside from the Venezia, everything that he hit with these torpedoes that would have caused a flood didn't, because the target, well, just kind of died. It was only the Venezia that he didn't finish off that actually suffered a bit of flooding damage. So yeah, that tracks. Well, anyway, it took him a while to get going, but I hope you'll agree it was worth the wait. 43 torpedo hits for Weidman in the Jaeger. I want to say that's a record, but it probably isn't. I mean, somebody out there has probably scored more than 43 torpedo hits in a single battle, and they're probably either in a Jaeger or a Shimakaze, but it's certainly the most torpedo hits in one game that I've ever seen. And I hope you all enjoyed watching him achieve it when he did finally get going, because that's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.